Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. With this week, we have Jay Richardson, professional handler, ex-professional handler, AKC judge, and just a good guy. I know. Anyway, sit back and enjoy and listen to Jay for an hour. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair, and is my dear friend Jay Richardson, ex-professional handler, AKC judge, and just good old round good guy. How's it going, man?
I'm good.
Did you enjoy yourself yesterday? Did you watch any of Westminster?
I did. I watched all the groups and stuff. I watched some of the breed judging on the videos and stuff. I think the camera work is great on the videos. They've gotten so good on the live streaming.
Yeah. I really enjoyed myself. I sat in my kitchen and I watched Wayne judge all morning and all afternoon.
I did my traditional deep dish pizza.
Oh, did you?
Home. That's what I order for dinner both nights, deep dish pizza, and just sit and watch the groups.
I think that's what I'm doing tonight. We have a hockey game tonight. That's what I'm doing tonight. Anyway, we're getting off track. Tell me, how did you get involved in the sport of dogs? And how old were you when you got involved?
I think I probably was about 12, 10 in that range when I showed the first standard poodle in juniors. My parents raised poodles. They started with standards, and then they gravitated more towards the toys. They had a couple miniatures, but as they got a little older too, the toys were a lot easier than dealing with the standard poodles. They got started in it. Basically, we lived in a community, Mount Prospect, Illinois, outside Chicago, and some people moved next door. He was a Navy aviator at the Naval Air Station not too far away. They had a standard poodle. I always remembered her name. Her name was Wycliffe Vanessa, bred by Gene Thomas. And she was the little sister to a dog who did some winning and was, I believe, a pretty good sire, dog by the name of Wycliffe Virgil.
Oh, I knew that dog, Virgil, yeah. Well, I didn't know him, but I know of the dog. Obviously.
Yeah, owned by a lady who lived actually turned out not too far away, Joan. It was Joan Schelke at the time. She did get married, Joan Wicklander. And she bred some dogs who did winning over the years and stuff. I think Buddy Dickey did winning with the dogs she bred. But, we fell in love with the breed. And my dad, with us bugging him, finally told my mom, okay, you can go buy a dog. Here's $50. Well, my mom found an ad in the paper and outsmarted Dad because she took the checkbook. And I think she paid $100 or $150 for this black pet standard poodle, and that's how things got rolling along. Their first show dogs came from a lady by the name of Susan North, who Darkin was her kennel name, but they were really all Beltor brown standard poodles.
Okay.
So, and then just kept going after that.
Well, how did you? So your parents have this standard poodle. Who was in charge of showing this first standard poodle?
My dad showed him. I just showed him in juniors. The first dog I really probably showed or tried to show was outside of juniors. They had a litter and we kept a couple. And the brown dog we kept, I mean, when you look back, you wonder why they did what they did. He was a horse. He was like 27, 28 inches in that range. And, they didn't trim the puppies as much then. So it was like a half a day's job to bathe them and blow dry them and stuff. And I had a paper route at the time. And I used to take him out with me in the paper route every morning. And he'd run loose and stuff. I always remember there was a girl who was new on the paper route next to mine, and she would come around the corner in the adjoining area, and I thought I think she peed in her pants. She thought he was a brown bear running loose in the neighborhood. So, things progressed. I mean, it was fun. I just always enjoyed. I usually ended up in juniors with the untrained puppies. I didn't have a terribly successful junior showmanship career because of that. But I do think it taught me well. It taught me how to lose.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of that. A lot.
How did you know, at what point, like you're 12 now or something like that, how did you know that dogs were going to basically be your life?
I don't think I did at that point. And then I think I was about 14 when I went to work after school for Lynn Welsh and Mabel Welsh. They had Elakahira poodles. Lynn and Mabel were the founding people behind the Wheaton Kennel Club. And Lynn...
Hey, what poodles did they have?
Elakahira was their kennel name.
Okay.
They were very successful. At that point, Mabel, they probably had about 20 dogs in the kennel, 25 dogs, a lot of toys and miniatures. I don't think they ever had standards. Mabel wasn't in the greatest health. She died probably about a year and a half after I started working there. And then about a year, 8 months, something like that later, Lynn married Dorothy Welsh. So I inherited some collies to take care of too after school.
So were you working in the kennel? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a big kennel. Dorothy had, maybe 8 collies or something like that. And by that time, because most of the poodles were older, there were less poodles and stuff. A great education. I mean, Lynn, you'd go there after school, and you never know who would be visiting them. Forrest Hall was there a lot. Larry Downing and he were very close. Larry was there a lot. The Van Courts would stop when they came to Chicago and visit. It was an interesting place.
I bet.
Got to meet a lot of people.
So when did you start working at the dog shows?
I think I was about 16 when I started working for Denny Codner as an assistant on the weekends. She, at the time, had the big black German Shepherd. She'd won the group at the Garden with the bear dog. And I love German Shepherds. I love big dogs. I was drawn to them. That's why I didn't really care that much about the toy poodles, the miniatures. The standard poodles are what there is. The rest are okay. But
how long were you with Denny?
Probably about 5-6 years.
That doesn't happen anymore, really.
No. I mean, I got yelled at a lot. It taught me a lot. Taught me how to take care of dogs. It taught me more than anything else. I think that was the most important thing about the handling business, is taking care of the dogs. Yeah. The rest of it was secondary. The care of the dogs, the condition of the dogs. I always enjoyed probably early mornings with all the dogs out in the X-Pen and stuff like that, the best. Quiet, just you and the dogs and stuff. I kind of think I decided at that point that I wanted to pursue a career as a handler. I saw it as an opportunity to be around more dogs than I ever would be able to own. I think that kind of got me more than anything else, just being around the dogs. And I mean, I think in a way I got along better with most dogs than I did with most people.
And most of us are like that, I think. So did you work for anybody else other than Denny Codner?
No.
So when did you go on your own then?
In those days, it was towards the end. I did have a handler's license from AKC. I don't even remember what all I got, because you had to be 21, and then you could get a handler's license and go out on your own. I actually remember flying to New York to meet Mr. Brumby, not Len, but his son was in charge of the handlers and stuff. And I had an interview with him, and probably about 5 or 6 months after I got a handler's license is when they did away with licensing the handlers. And then just kind of fell into place.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that, Jay. What happened after that? So are you still in Chicago area?
Yes, I pretty much lived in Chicago my whole life.
When did you get it? Did you go out and get a kennel? What did you do? How did you get started?
It just seems, you get a couple dogs to show, like a couple of people that Denny had shown some dogs for, Springers and some Siberians and stuff. And then it just kind of, get a couple more and a couple more. And, I had a kennel in Lakemore, Illinois, which is located, this is a Chicago suburb, out in the boondocks a little bit. Not too far from Island Lake, where Ken and Virginia live.
Okay.
In that area. And then I eventually moved to Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is where I handled out of pretty much the rest of the time.
How old were you at this time, Jay? When you started on your own?
22.
22.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I did not do it full time to begin with. I mean, there wasn't that many dogs to show. I did have another job. Worked for Baxter Travenol, the medical supply people and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But shortly thereafter, I was able to, get enough to go on my own.
And what was your first dog that sort of got you on the map?
I'm not sure. There were a couple dogs. I think I started showing some dandies.
Now, did Denny work on terriers at all?
She had a couple Norwich and a couple. She had one client that she showed some Norwich for, and I think we had like a couple Australian terriers, but no, that was about it.
But like a dandy is a difficult dog to trim and condition. How did you just woke up and just did it?
Well, I was kind of involved with the girl who owned the dog, Dawn, who married for a few years. And actually, when we started out, she did all the trimming. Then I, got dandies, and I got soft coats to show, some border terriers. It just kind of, they just appear sometimes. And it just like anything else. I mean, you learn by doing. This is certainly one of those businesses that you learn by doing. You learn by making mistakes, and hopefully you don't keep repeating the mistakes. I mean, to me, that's how you learn how to trim. Certainly I always thought I was lucky in this area, going to dog shows every weekend, seeing people like Dick Cooper every weekend, George Ward a lot and stuff. And I can't speak enough about how helpful they were. I mean, George would never do anything for you, neither would Dick, but he would tell you things.
You're right.
He'd tell you, you could ask him and he would tell you what you did wrong. And George too. And I think that's one of the things that's so valuable in this business, if you can find people like that. There were some people also, the handlers in Chicago, that were very helpful to me when I got started. Betty Jean and Rich Orsino, who showed a lot of working dogs. I learned a lot by watching Rich show the tough Rottweilers and stuff like that. And they sent some dogs for me to show and stuff. That's how I kind of got started in Ridgebacks, was through them.
No, you've shown a lot of different breeds, which is it's not the norm down there nowadays. I guess a few years back it was more normal. What breed do you think you're most known for then? Like I think of you. I told you earlier, I thought you bred dandies.
No, I never bred any of them. I buy some of them. I thought a lot of people would think dandies. Mm-hmm. A lot of people Ridgebacks. Showed a bunch of Dalmatians. I always tried to I thought it it's helpful to keep a blend of the Ridgebacks and the Dalmatians, the Rottweilers, the spit and go dogs, so to speak, versus the Dandies, the soft coats, the Westies. The dogs require more time to get them ready and things like that.
You're a guy of two hats because you were a professional handler and now you're a successful judge. So the first question I'm going to lean towards handling. If a young man or young woman came up to you now and said they wanted to be a handler, what advice would you give them, Jay?
It's funny. I had a conversation probably about a month ago with somebody about that. The first thing I would tell them is go find that boarding kennel, that grooming business, that pet care business, something like that. I think that if I had to do it over again, I would do that. I think then having that, because the majority of money, I think, in dogs these days is in the pet business, the pet care. And it gives you then the flexibility. You don't have to show every dog that people bring you to show. You can be a little bit more selective, showing the dogs and showing for the people you want to show for. I think that is the best piece of advice I could get. I mean, I love showing dogs. It's given me an opportunity to see the world as a judge, to meet all kinds of terribly interesting people, and to be around great dogs, whether I showed them or just seeing them every weekend with another handler. And I think that's it's hard to imagine not doing this, I guess.
Yeah. When did you retire from handling?
I think it was about 92.
92. Wow. It didn't seem like it was that long ago, but it is. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. I just got about a month ago, 2 months ago, like my 25th judging pin and certificate. So, and when it came, I thought, I've been doing this that long.
Yeah, it does. It's weird.
It just all blends together.
Yeah. So when you retired, did you automatically decide you wanted to start judging?
I wasn't sure. So what I ended up after talking, Maribeth had a lot to do with the judges at that time. And after talking to her, I ended up applying for 13 breeds over working, terrier, non-sporting. It was the 13 breeds I was most comfortable with. And I've always been happy I did it that way. Maybe it took me a little longer to get my first group, but I was very comfortable with what I thought the breed should look like when I walked into the ring.
Sure.
And I think it takes a while to find yourself as a judge. It takes a while to refine your procedure. I mean, to me, there's really no right or wrong way to arrive at your decision. How you do it doesn't have to be the way I do it or the guy next door does it. You have to be comfortable using your thought process, how it works best for you. And I struggled a little bit when I first started with some of the bigger classes and stuff, so I never had to keep track of that type of thing. And if I had to do it over again, I'd probably do it the same way. Just take the things I was really comfortable with.
So what was your first group? I know you did multiple breeds, different breeds, but what was the first group that you got? Was that terriers?
Terriers.
Yeah.
Terriers, then working, then sporting, and I just finished non-sporting.
So I'm going to go backtrack a bit. How old were you when you started judging?
In my 40s.
I like when we all think about, how old am I right now?
Yeah, probably mid-40s.
Oh, I have one more backtrack question. When you were showing dogs, what was do you have a highlight? Do you have a win that sticks out in your mind that you smile when you think about even now?
There were a couple. I mean, there have been some highlights and certainly the lowlights.
Yeah. Well, we all get those. You win a few, lose a bunch. You know?
Yeah. I think early on, one of the things that I won, some people brought me a Bernese Mountain Dog special to show, and that's when they were still in the working group and stuff. And I thought this dog was beautiful. He didn't always like being a show dog. And the national specialty happened to be in Wisconsin. Muriel Freeman, Mrs. Rottweiler, did that. And he wasn't always the greatest show dog. He didn't really like it. He was a pet dog, and he liked being a pet dog. It was very hard to motivate why I should get off the couch today to do this. And
I have days like that, Jay.
He walked into that ring, and I never touched him. He just decided this was his day. And when we were getting the picture, Muriel said to me, this was really one of the easiest things I've done in a long time. And I just, I'd never had anything like that happen to me where everything, and I've always told people going best in show is like, it's the day where everything went right, which makes up for all those days where nothing went right. And that's one of the ones of the highlights.
Those are fun though. And then those things happen. The
other one that meant a lot to me, I had a Dandy Dimont dog. He's the sire of the Luther dog I did all the winning with. He really was a different dog. He wasn't a great show dog. It took him a long time to decide to be a show dog. I always wanted to get one best in show on him. And Ace of Maze did that in a very, very competitive best in show. And that was the dog's one best in show. I didn't show him a lot. And it just really meant a lot to me, that dog. He probably never won as much as he should have, but I think we've all had dogs like that we looked at and think they should win a lot for whatever reason.
And I find some dogs that further on in succession win more because of that dog you didn't win with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his son did a lot of winning. So,
I showed a Beagle. I bet he won 50 groups. And he ended up with one best in show. Well, the next Beagle, who probably wasn't as good as him, 10 or 12 best in shows.
I also think the highlights of showing dogs are for some of the breeders. I showed for Barbara Sawyer Brown, who just died about a week ago, the Ridgeback Quay Tooth. I showed elk hounds for a lady by the name of Bonnie Turner, who lived in Georgia, who bred some great dogs. And for some of my terrier clients too, I got to show some soft-coated Wheatons for Gay Dunlap. Showing dogs for people like that just, I think, is the epitome of being a handler, to show dogs for those great breeders that without them, none of us would be anything.
Oh, exactly. And I find it's a lot. We don't have enough of those breeders anymore that have multiple litters in a year to choose from and really build a family of dogs,
Right. And I made the point in conversations recently that one of the things I find troublesome is most of the time you walk into a ring and you've got 5 of them. They all look different. They're all different makes or shape. The days of walking into a ring and looking at a dog and going, I know what kennel that dog came from, they aren't that prevalent anymore.
Yeah.
I think part of it is that people have gone, you read so much about the whole line breeding, it's inbreeding, and it's wrong. I remember as a young kid poring over those poodle pedigrees because I was so interested, and you'd see half sister bred to half brother and son bred this, and they were so tightly bred, but that's because that's what made them all look the same.
Yeah, it's fun when you watch a judge and then they judge a large entry and they pick a family of dogs, and it's not like you said, it's not as prevalent anymore as it was back in the day because it was so easy to pick out, say, a Wycliffe Standard Poodle. You could pick it out easily, But those days, I'm sure there's still breeders out there that have family of dogs.
I would agree. It's just there's not as many.
Right.
But breeding is much more difficult now, I think.
Well, if you have more than 2 litters, you're considered a puppy mill.
It's hard to find property to have a big kennel if you could find help. And the days of having 20 or 30 bitches is long gone.
Yeah. So you've been judging now for 30 years almost, right?
Yeah.
You've seen some dogs all over the world. Without commenting on dogs that are being shown actively, Are there some dogs out there that you wish you could either been a part of, either by showing or by judging? Are there dogs that stuck out in your mind that have left a huge impression on you?
I mean, there's two dogs that have stuck in my mind that I had the same reaction after I went over them for the first time. And the first one was Mick.
Mm-hmm.
After I went over him, I saw him, but I had never touched him. The first time I had him in the breed, after I went over him, as I stood up from going over him, I thought to myself, I now understand what the Kerry Blue Standard has described, because this is it. The other dog that had an effect like that on me was Matisse, the Portuguese water dog. I just went over him the first time and I thought, oh my God, where'd this dog come from? Now,
just down the road.
Well, I know we were getting a picture, and I said to Michael, well, I won't repeat exactly what I said, but basically I said, where did this dog come from? Where did you find this dog? Canada?
Yeah, Donna lives about an hour from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I do think one of the joys of judging is to be able to find that dog that hits all your notes, that tickles your fancy, so to speak, and to reward them. And it makes up for sometimes long days when one of those walks in the ring and you go, wow.
Well, that brings me to my next question. Advice I just started my judging career, Jay. So what advice would you give a new judge?
You can't make them what they aren't. You have to judge what's in front of you. You have to have in your mind what you think they're supposed to be. And I think important thing in many of these breeds, and I think everybody would agree with this, especially when you look about sporting breeds and stuff, to understand what the function of the breed is and what they were meant to do as a sporting dog. What environment do they hunt in? What birds do they have to pick up? There are two questions I sometimes ask myself at the end when it's like decision-making time. Certainly in sporting dogs, I will look and think, if I have to take one of these hunting, which one will it be? And other times I will ask myself, if I have to buy one of these for breeding, which one will I buy? Because I sometimes think that helps me find the one that's maybe not the flashiest, maybe not the, quote, prettiest, but has those breed characteristics that are important to what makes them what they are. And I think when you start out judging, you sometimes overthink too. Just follow your gut. Yeah. Follow your gut feeling. You're going to be right way more than you're going to be wrong. Follow your instinct, because I think sometimes we all get that instinct. You look and you're not really sure why you think this dog is that good of a dog, but your instincts say it really is, and then it probably turns out to be a really, really good dog.